Oh my god, oh my god! Ah! I can't be so cavalier this week because there's a drop down to the ocean there, so I don't want to go falling down there. Welcome once again to another episode from a not so secret, not so undisclosed location, just outside of St. John's, Newfoundland. Well, we're still inside St. John's really, but we're a lot closer to the ocean than I usually am. It took me about half an hour to walk out this way. So, once again, a field trip edition of In the Library of Graphic Literature, episode 149, with your host, Wallace Ryan, out here in all nature's glory. Out that way, about 7 miles out that way, is a point called Cape Spear. That's the most easterly point in North America, about 7 miles that way. Can't get a good view of it here. If I was up on the mountain above here, which I'll show you towards the end, you probably could. And this actually, they used to, during World War II, they used to drag a fence across, an underwater fence across the entrance to this harbor to keep U-boats from coming inside. U-boats were waiting just offshore there for us during the war. So it was a little bit closer than it was to the rest of North America. You can even see some of the World War II gun emplacements still over there. Behind the camera where I'm filming now is another one, but it's all locked up, closed down, and there's another one just over that way, so it's kind of a historical spot. Now, as I'm talking to you, you're going to see people walking through the picture here, because of course this is a national park technically, so, and this is a trail I'm on, so there is going to be people walking through. But hey, it's going to be kind of the fun of it anyway. So, let's start with the topic of the day. The topic of today is the Curtis magazines, the Marvel comic magazines from the 1970s. Marvel was part of a bigger company called Magazine Management, and so the Curtis was just sort of another wing. Really, it was Marvel, because all the staff who worked on them were from Marvel, etc., etc. They eventually began labeling them Marvel Comics, so we'll go through them very quickly. I actually wrote down a few notes because it's pretty windy out here, and I knew if I had just any information on cards that they would just blow all away. Oh, feel free to walk right through. Yeah, it is on. Oh, I like your face if you want. Okay, so the Curtis magazines start in 1971 with Savage Tales, which has Kazar. It had Conan. Conan came to life in it. A lot of good art. Like I say, this is the one good thing about the. I don't even have to move the pages; they're being turned for me. Here's some Sterling. So yeah, that was very cool. So that was the first big one, and they did pretty good with that. I know some other companies were mad at them because they got into, figuring that, hey, this is our audience, blah 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 blah. I mean, that one was edited. For instance, that was edited by Stanley, or Archie Goodwin, I think, actually edited that one. It was no, Jerry Conway. So as you can see, it was. As a matter of fact, here's the Curtis one with an early Marvel Monster Group logo on it. Now this is, I'm putting this in even though this isn't a comic, it's more just a few it's pictures with captions added to it. It was the first one that I can think of that had the actual Marvel label on it, right? So that came in 72. In 73 came Crazy magazine, which I don't have an example of here for you. Hunt of Horror, which was 73 to 75. It was prose and all that, but it was revived with #1 in 74, with comics in it. There was Dracula Lives. Let's dig out Dracula Lives. And you'll see this has the Marvel Monster thing there. And there's a Dick Gordana adaptation of Dracula. So yeah, Pablo Marcos, and they had a few old ones thrown in for good measure. And of course, some Gene Colan. What's the Dracula story without a bit of Gene Colan thrown in there, hey? Okay, so throw that back in there. After that came Monsters Unleashed, 73 to 75, focused on their own monsters. Man-Thing, Werewolf by Night, Frankenstein's monster, that type of thing. Published 11 issues and one super annual. As a matter of fact, here is that super annual. So it is very super. There's even a bit of Steranko in there. There's a mention of Newfoundland. So, and it ends, actually, I think this is one that has a, I thought it was this one, or one of them actually did have a Steranko piece in it reprinted, but yeah, pretty cool. So let's throw that back in there. Okay, now, and here's the regular Monsters Unleashed, still with the Marvel Monsters magazine logo there. Once again, some Frankenstein. Some John Buscema, some old-fashioned, looks like look like Everett, actually. Lots of ads. A very early Frank Brunner. And I think this is the one. Oh, and The Roaches by Ralph Reese. Check that out. So, anyway, so from there, according to my list here, there was Tales of Zombies, published 10 issues, featuring mainly the zombie character from Steve Gann and Gerber, I do believe it was, yeah. No, Steve Gerber and Pablo Marcos. Sorry, Pablo. Vampire Tales, published 11 issues and one super annual. As a matter of fact, I even have one here. These, of course, are all in pretty rough shape. Here we go. This one particularly so. So this has the Morbius in it by Pablo Marcos, who did a lot of work for them. As you can see, this one's all. This is the one with the Steranko one in it, adapted to black and white. So yeah, fun. I love, and like I say myself, I like the Marvel magazines. It was, I thought it was like a step ahead into the to a sort of more grown-up audience, right? Then came, and I got a big stack of them here. Then came the big year for them, which was 1974. They started out with what was a comic book, which was a thing between Dennis Kitchen and Stan Lee, and that, and only lasted 2 issues. So they, but I do believe he revived it years later for to put in Kitchen Sink Enterprises. So there was that one, and what was the other big one? This was the biggest year. It was Deadly Hands of Kung Fu, which the only copies I had were in hardcover, and I didn't want to be dragging them all the way out here. So just take my word on it. Also that year, following that was, the Deadly Hands ran 33. It was one of the longer running ones. A lot of the other ones, the monster ones, came and went and all that. These are when the really big ones started to hit. And I can remember this at the time because there seemed to be a big explosion of them. Next came Planet of the Apes, which published 29 issues. And then the granddaddy of all the Curtis Marvel titles was the Savage Sword of Conan, 235 issues. you know, by far the big one. Then later that year came actually one of my favorites was Doc Savage, the Man of Bronze. This is by Buscema, John Buscema, and a good one. Then came Cull and the Barbarians. This one had some great artwork. There was a Solomon Kane, Alan Weiss, Neil Adams one in there, Jess Jollerman, Cull. Great artwork. This issue in particular is particularly good, issue 2. Now let's see, that was Cull, that was 75 that came out. 3 issues were published of that. 8 of the Doc Savage ones. Then there was Marvel Preview, which went from 75 to 80, and then it changed its name. And this is a Marvel Preview here, it presents Man God. Changed its name, and it became Bizarre Adventures. Marvel Preview presents Bizarre Adventures, and then it just became Bizarre Adventures. This one I do believe has some Dave Cockrum artwork. It actually has some Howard Chaykin artwork in it. First or second appearance of Dominic Fortune, I can't remember which. But yeah, some classics there. Now, let me take off the last bunch here. I'll go right on by. It's
Okay, if you could move that way a little bit, that'd be great.
okay. The camera's on too, by the way, so you can hide your face if you don't want to be.
A little bit more, if you don't mind.
Oh no, go right ahead.
All right, we just don't want to get too close. Thank you. Thanks.
And then you see in this one here, where up in the corner now it's starting to become Curtis. So, like I say, still Marvel magazines, just putting the name Curtis on it. This was basically about the Invisible Man, and this was by Val Mayrick and Dan Atkins. A classic adaptation of the H.G. Wells story. Then there's a Gil Kane one. And, oh yeah, I'll go right ahead. Just if you don't mind being on camera, I even said when I started this, people will be walking in front of me.
That's okay. I'm happy to do it.
Okay.
I'm actually a filmmaker myself.
Oh, okay.
What are you shooting?
It's I do a show called In the Library of Graphic Literature for on YouTube, and I talk about comics and stuff like that. And all this summer I've been going outside to film just because it's so nice out, right?
Heck yeah. I'm actually a local cosplayer. We dress up as the Guardians of the Galaxy and the Avengers, and we go to the hospitals and stuff.
Oh, okay. Jeez, that's good.
I'm a big nerd.
I like to see stuff like that. It looks good for comics, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the comic fans are good people.
Yes, we are.
You take care, sir.
Take care, man. And check me out on YouTube, too.
What's the name again?
It's In the Library of Graphic Literature under the name Wallace Ryan.
Wallace Ryan. Yeah, I see you post all the time.
Yeah.
Take care.
Okay, see you, man. Okay, now. So, yeah, Marvel Preview turned into Strange Adventures, and we had Masters of Terror, that Invisible Man one. And then one of my favorites that lasted 6 issues and had one special was the Unknown Worlds of Science Fiction. And this in particular, this is the only one I have, unfortunately. And this is actually one of my favorites because it has the Behold Man story from Michael Moorcock with the artwork by Alex Nino, one of my all-time favorite artists out there. Really cool stuff. Well, I'm gonna have to move here. Even some Bruce Jones stuff here. Okay, you can just walk right in front. No problem. And believe it or not, yeah, this is Bruce Jones, who people are more associated with having been a writer more than an artist, but he was actually quite a good artist. But they had great stories. That's the other thing too, adapting good science fiction stories, great artwork. If you ever come across any of these, pick them up, because whatever the price they're asking for it, it's not enough. Okay. Oh, you can cut in front there if you want. Now, next up, I'll go right past folks. Oh, that's okay. I even said before I started the show that I'd have people walking through. Sort of adds flavor to it. Have a good day. So after that came Legions of Monsters and Marvel movie premiere. This is the Land That Time Forgot. Then there was Dracula. So this was basically Gene Colan, Roger Mackenzie, John Buscema. The Gene Colan work, of course, is good, but I mean, I think it sort of more or less played itself out. Speaking of playing itself out, then came Howard the Duck, The Last Stab. Same with Dracula once it, and with artwork here by, yep, looks like Gene Colan too. They went to magazine, tried to make it work, but it just never really did work without Steve Gerber. Steve Gerber was the man who made it. It just, I don't know, just never was the same. And then after that came, big one after that was, of course, Rampaging Hulk, which eventually just turned into The Hulk with an exclamation mark, and it became a color magazine after a while, and then it died. It was notable, actually, the early issues were done by Simonson with Alfredo A. Keela inking, which was a bizarre choice, but it was kind of neat, especially the first issue. Then, and in the backup too, as it went along, was Moon Knight by Bill Sienkiewicz. That was his early stuff and all that, and he was just really starting to get his legs underneath him creatively, but there's still great comics and great stories, so definitely worth reading. And I think that was about it there for those. Now the reason I wanted to talk about the Currys magazine / comics is that they were a big part of my creative childhood growing up, because I would have been 13, 14, 15, a very young, impressionable teenager at the time, and to me, I was used to superhero comics and all this type of stuff, so I came across eerie and creepy, and they were like forbidden fruit type of stuff, and then I started to see the Marvel ones, and it especially caught on with the Savage Sword, because they were a little bit more racy than the average Conan the Barbarian comics. And then I got, of course, into collecting the Marvel premiere preview issues, because there was a lot of great art. That was one thing. There was a Punisher came out, that was Marvel Super Action, that turned into a color comic in the end. But that was one thing I think that distinguishes the magazines from the rest of the Marvel lineup, was just the art was amazing for all of it, and of course black and white. So of course, when you're doing black and white, you got to be good, I think. But yeah, especially the Deadly Hands of Kung Fu. I absolutely love that. The art in that was quite spectacular. That's where I first fell in love with Marshall Rogers, other artists like Rudy Nebrez, George Perez, early George Perez on the White Tiger and Sons of Tiger comics. Just out-and-out great comics. And so between that and the Savage Sword, they had me. And the early Rampaging Hulk I was really big on. And the previews, like I say, great guest issues. There was one, I do believe, with a Thor by Jim Starlin, and there was, of course, the Star-Lord by John Byrne. Great comics. So if you see any of them in your local comic book store, pick them up. They're all worth buying. So with that being said, I think, okay, I don't see anyone coming that way anyway, or that way. And of course, and of course, check out Thursday Comics. This week's was actually, or the week past was a giant-sized episode. It was about an hour of us talking about the best Marvel Silver Age omnibuses, and I think the next one will be will be a news one. But then the week after, we'll go back to another giant-sized edition to talk about DC omnibuses, Silver Age, the best there. So check those out, and check out the next week, because it's going to be episode 150. I have my friend Dennis Osborne will be my guest star, and we'll probably just do a tour of the old library and wax eloquent and that type of stuff, as much as we can wax eloquent. Anyway, thank you for having me over, and before I go, I will give you a little tour of my location here. As a matter of fact, it's kind of cool because we got a ship coming in right now. Ain't that cool, eh? I couldn't have planned it better this way. So behind you, as you look out onto the ocean there, as far as you can get there, this is about as far as you're going to get in North America. Once you go out there, you're heading towards Europe. Now, that's over there, that's called the South Side Hills there. And they actually do wrap all around the city. And there's the harbor. So it's a little pocket harbor. It's actually quite a beautiful little harbor. I'll give them a wave, see if they toot their horn. Yes, they did. They did. Okay. Now, just to give you an idea, here's where I was right here, and this was basically what I was standing next to, just to show you what it looked like there. So I was pretty darn close to the edge. But hey, I'll do anything for comics. Now, of course, you see there the continuation of the trail up that way. Around the corner up there, actually by those boulders up there, which you go on the inside of, there's actually a chain placed into the rock to keep you from falling off. And trust me, so I've been out here days when it's very windy, and you actually have to be careful because it's very easy to get blown off these cliffs and end up down on the rocks down there. Where especially if it's a windy day, you'll get swept out to sea and they'll never see you again. Now, just to show you what was above where I was, and a couple of 100 feet up that way is Cabot Tower. This is Signal Hill. I'm on here at Signal Hill National Park. On the top of that is where Marconi sent his famous signal. So anyway, that's another episode of In the Library of Graphic Literature. Thank you for having me over, and one more good look there at the, especially at the water house over there. That's called Fort Amherst. Okay, thanks for having me over, and see you in a week's time, or less. Okay, bye!